Let's take a look now at the issue of trans rights. J.K. Rowling has, not for the first time, locked antlers with the trans movement with the following tweet. People who menstruate, she said. I'm sure there used to be a word for those people. Someone help me out. Wumben, Wimpund, Woomud, and then of course she meant women, because she links the physical occurrence of menstruation as to being an exclusively female thing. But the trans community have fought back and said that women who previously were men can also menstruate. So my goodness, this is a very thorny issue. Harry Potter actor Daniel Radcliffe has sharply criticised J.K. Rowling, which I think is definitely an example of biting the hand that feeds you. Has published a piece, and he said, transgender women are women. Any statement to the contrary erases the identity and dignity of transgender people and goes against all advice given by professional healthcare associations who have far more expertise on this subject than either Joe or I. I wonder if J.K. Rowling has more expertise, because J.K. Rowling, plot spoiler, is a woman. And in fact, I've just leapt into the gallery here at our glittering, glamorous studios on the 17th floor of the News UK building in the beating heart of central London. I've spoken to Charlotte and Amy, who are part of our brilliant team here, and said, if you've got questions about this, would you mind sticking them on the screen? Because really, I'm a bloke. Who cares what I think? And therefore, I'm actually more engaged with what J.K. Rowling, as a woman, has to say than Daniel Radcliffe, who is an actor. So I don't know. Really, it's a fascinating subject. Let us speak to somebody who can definitely help us with this. CEO of Mermaid UK. It's a charity that supports gender variant and transgender youth. Susie Green, wonderful to have you on the show.
Thank you for inviting me on.
You're very welcome. Now, Susie, first of all, your reaction to A, the comments of J.K. Rowling, and B, the remarks of Daniel Radcliffe.
I am very pleased that Daniel Radcliffe has come out in support of the trans community. I think that J.K. Rowling's comments have caused massive unrest across all of our trans young people and their families. I think it's just really sad to see their very existence being negated by somebody whose writing, whose work has basically created a safe space for many young people who feel alone.
Well, I completely agree. I mean, she is obviously a literary genius. I think she's sold more copies of Harry Potter nearly than like copies of the Bible. She's a billionaire. She's a cultural icon. I must say, Susie, as a parent, I'm deeply grateful to her output because, especially my younger son took a little while to get into reading. And once he got started on Harry Potter, that was it. It is like crack cocaine for young people, that set of stories. So I think in terms of literacy, we can just almost single-handedly thank J.K. Rowling. But on this one, I guess it's political, isn't it? Do you think that she's ill-advised to even comment?
I think that I sort of feel that somebody with such a platform shouldn't be punching down against a minority who face such incredible discrimination and prejudice in their day-to-day lives, that doing so, and we've seen this on social media actually, her comments have actually opened the door to lots of people to go after other trans women on social media and make really hostile and disgusting comments and be very threatening and abusive. I mean, I have 4 children. My oldest is my daughter, who is trans. And she sent me a message this morning. She's currently in New Zealand. And she sent me a message this morning just really saying how upset she is, because she grew up with me reading Harry Potter and, to her and her younger brothers. And to her, it's having somebody invalidate her very existence, who she admires and believes in so much, that created for her such a safe space when she was a child, is heartbreaking.
Is she really attacking the trans community, though? I've met J.K. Rowling on a couple of occasions. I think she's a humanitarian. I think she's a very, very decent person, obviously a very gifted writer, and she's all about children. Do you not think she just wants to create a distinction between a woman and a trans woman, and isn't that perfectly reasonable?
Well, I wouldn't say so, because you're invalidating women, because trans women are women and trans men are men. So the comment that she made about people who menstruate, we've got so many young trans guys or non-binary young people who are on our groups, and they consider themselves to be masculine, and they do not identify as female. So to be told categorically by somebody who they admire so much that they have to be categorised as women is deeply hurtful, because that is not who they are. And this is the same for my daughter. My daughter is a woman, and by virtue of what J.K. Rowling is saying, she is saying that actually, no, she's not.
In terms of the menstruation issue, I mean, that's obviously a sort of key biological occurrence that's exclusive to the sort of biological female gender. So in some ways, that goes beyond politics. That's just a medical fact, isn't it?
Well, not really. If you look at the number of children that are born intersex, if you look at people who
I beg your pardon. Sorry, Susie. Sorry. What did you say there? The number of people who are born in sex?
The number of born who are intersex. So the number of people that are born with conditions which means they will never menstruate, that they would be identified as female. Does this validate them too? Are they then not considered to be women because they don't menstruate? And
well, then they have ovaries. I mean, they have ovaries.
Well, not necessarily.
They have the female reproductive organs, Susie. I mean, surely
This is it. It's not necessarily, because actually it is very clear that trans women are women and trans men are men. And therefore, as soon as you go back to this biological existentialism, what you're basically saying is, we don't care who you say you are. We are going to insist that you live with the gender that you were assigned at birth. And for some people, for many people, it's just not that simple. And it invalidates their experience, and it invalidates who they are. And you can keep going back to biology says this and biology says that, but actually it's not even as simple as that anyway. We know that there are many conditions where this is not as simple as that. And for trans people, this is certainly the case. My daughter is a woman, and she needs to be addressed as a woman and respected as a woman. And the comments that J.K. Rowling has made invalidates her very existence, and means that people online, and I'm seeing this all day, every day at the moment because of what J.K. Rowling has said, people are essentially going onto trans women's feeds and going, "You're a man."
Indeed. I mean, I just wonder whether, I mean, obviously every time she speaks on this subject, there seems to be a pile-on. And I just wonder whether, in the end, the toxic nature of this discourse is very difficult. I think there's a perception in some quarters among females that I've spoken to about this, that, and I think this may be where Rowling is coming from, that, this is almost a manifestation of, it's a feminist issue, that you have trans people who previously were male, who have transitioned to being female, which is the most wonderful, important, valuable thing, but actually, therefore, attacking a woman. I mean, it's almost another example of men attacking women again.
My daughter is men attacking women. My daughter,
because it's a former man attacking a woman.
No, my daughter has never been a man. My daughter has never been a man. I actually find that really quite offensive, based on everything that she has had to go through to be accepted as a woman, to have you turn around and say to her, well, it doesn't matter, she's still a man.
Well, no, not at all. That's not what I've said, Susie. Don't put words in my mouth. Clearly, she has transitioned. She's still a man. She has transitioned, which is a wonderful thing. And it's a little bit like feeling your sexual orientation, your religious orientation, that is everybody's journey. And if I chose to embark upon a process of becoming a woman, I hope I'd have the support of my friends and loved ones. And I think it's a wonderful thing, because I think whatever we are in life, we should come out as what we are. And I salute and congratulate your daughter for that. But clearly, when you say she was born a woman, I mean, physiologically not. She was
assigned male at birth. And as soon as she could express herself, as soon as she could talk about who she was, she made it very clear that that was not her truth.
Sure.
And the fact is that is what is, it should be respected, what people present themselves as and who they say they are, in much the same way as you are respected and allowed to say who you are, and we respect that. In terms of my daughter, she is a woman, and I respect that. And this biological existentialism, all it does is damage and create unrest. And the fact is that no trans woman would ever attack a woman, and that's really strong language that you use.
What about the regular pylons for J.K. Rowling, who just dares to say her views as a woman.
Well,
Or
do
Julia
you
Hartley-Brewer
think
on the
that
breakfast show of this radio station, who has received dogs abuse for daring to comment about this issue of trans as a woman. As I said at the beginning of the interview, no one cares what I think because I'm a bloke, and I'm not even sure I should be the one asking the questions. I think it should be Amy or Charlotte.
I think that you're basically conflating this down to trans women. This is not about just trans women. This is about transgender people across, the whole gamut from trans masculine to trans feminine, including non-binary in the middle.
Sure.
It always seems to come back to being about trans women, but it's not.
Yeah.
Trans men deserve to be accepted and respected for their identity in exactly the same way as trans women do. But trans women are always pulled out and picked out for abuse.
Well,
and the fact is that J.K. Rowling, as a woman, she does not have to deal with the things that trans women do. So respectfully, this is not affecting anybody as to whether or not somebody is identified as a woman or not, and if they're respected. And the pile-on that she is getting is because she is causing such immense amounts of distress and opening the door to the sort of abuse that I see happening every day to trans women because of this. And how can that be right? She cannot see herself as being more of an authority on this than clinicians across the globe who have, categorically stated that trans women are women, trans men are men, non-binary people should be respected. This is the international consensus, regardless of whether or not she's a literary genius with regards to the work that she does on, the writing work that she has done. How does she have the expertise? How can anybody give her the credibility to be able to basically cut through trans people's rights and create this issue and this hostility towards them when she doesn't know?
But is a woman not well placed to define what a woman is?
Well, all women define themselves. My daughter's a woman. She defines herself as a woman. I'm a woman. I have no problem. I'm a cisgender woman, which means that when I was born, I was assigned female. And I completely and utterly am happy with that. And that's absolutely fine. But as far as other people are concerned, they don't. Their gender that was assigned, their sex assigned at birth, does not fit with their gender identity. And that is their business, and why anybody else should seek to say that that's not right. I don't have the right to say what the woman next to me is or should be or how she should behave. And I wouldn't even consider that would be my right to do so.
Susie, I mean, I hear you, and you're speaking, by the way, very, from the heart and, with great passion and integrity as well. I wouldn't be able to comment on an issue of race as a white man. I don't think I'm in a position to say, is Britain not a racist country? But I would be very interested in somebody of an ethnic background to answer that question, and I would hear them out. And I just wonder whether we need to do that with women. A lot of women are distressed by the language around this and what a woman actually is.
Well, I define myself as a woman, so that is who I am, and that's how I expect to be addressed, because that is who I am. And the fact is that the experience of being a woman is unique to that woman. And it shouldn't be anybody else's business to say what that should be or how that should look or
Susie,
how that should be presented.
With the clock against us, and we really appreciate your time, can I ask you one more question, which is whether a key element to this is simply context? So in other words, if somebody has, as you say in the case of your daughter, from nearly the moment they could speak or walk, they just were female, that's how they felt. And I passionately support and appreciate that, because how can that be any different to a little boy either feeling like he's a little girl or a little boy being attracted to other little boys and being gay? So I don't see a difference between identifying as a female, previously male, or your sexual orientation. So you won't find anyone more sort of embracing of this than myself. I just wonder whether what you need is always to have the context, to not airbrush history, so that if I encountered somebody that perhaps I was maybe romantically involved with, and they were a female that identified as a female, trans female, and I would consider them a woman and I would call them a woman and they would be a woman. But I would like to know that they've been on that journey. And I think maybe the concern in some quarters is about the airbrushing of the past, that we always need the context that the trans process has actually happened. What do you think?
I think that's a massive question that is not something that I'm going to answer in 2 minutes. But I also think that you need to also look at the context with which you ask this, that essentially trans people are different to everybody else and that they don't have the same rights to a personal life, privacy and everything else that everybody else has. And that in and of itself, again, shows how trans people are treated differently to everybody else. The fact that you believe that you would have the right to know their history, their personal history, things that are very personal and private. So you're essentially saying that they don't have the same human rights as everybody else because they're trans.
Fascinating stuff. Susie, once again, we are deeply grateful for your time, CEO of Mermaid UK, and we also send your daughter our warmest wishes as well. It's a very interesting debate, and it's a fragile, fractious talking point.